And we are live. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Midweek Mix-Up Podcasts. It's a nice and chilled one today because we're a couple of panel members down. Patcher is exhausted from work, so he's unable to join us this evening. And Boxy, pretty much the same. He's only just got in from work, so he's got to get himself sorted, and he's tired out and things from meetings all day as well. So it's just the three of us, but that's not bad. We're going to have a fun time either way, and we're going to have some awesome topics and awesome discussions.
That was my mic, sorry. I should have muted.
I was going to say, what was that?
I forgot that I am on the Yeti and it's so sensitive.
It's like a giant gong to start the show there.
It was the springs on the mic arm going boing.
I thought the dog was like really snoring tonight. It's like the pup going for it.
Well, you live and you learn.
But with that said, yes, we'll introduce our awesome panel members, of course, for this evening. First of all, Xbox Mick, how are you doing today, sir? What you've been up to and what you've been playing?
Yeah, obviously, apart from work, I had a fantastic stream last night with yourself, and we had two wonderful guests from the Sea of Thieves Fest team, Music Me and Looting Lizaroo. We had a good night. It was a good show. Got plenty of nice questions. Little guest appearance from Captain Logan from the Keelhole podcast as well. And yeah, we had some fun. I think it was nice. Went well. And that's about it, really. I've been played a bit of Sea of Thieves, but it's been busy recently, so I haven't had much chance to play anything else.
Yeah, I'm pretty much exactly the same. I was saying this on the weekend with Jen as well. I haven't actually sat down and gamed for a little while. Sea of Thieves was the first time in a while, actually, because I've just been creating loads of overlays and intro videos and outro videos and things like that for people to get them all set for their first shows of the year and things. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun getting that set up. But yeah, I'm exactly the same. I had fun yesterday. Two awesome dudes from Guy and Gal from the Sea of Thieves Fest crew. Obviously telling us about the preparations for the next Sea of Thieves Fest later on this year. So that's awesome. And obviously it's massively popular and successful with over 650 tickets sold so far out of a possible 850, I think it was. So we've got another 200 to go. So congrats to them on that success so far. And of course, I think they'll probably end up, by the time it comes around, they'll have sold those 200. No problem.
Paddy will probably buy the rest anyway. So.
Oh, absolutely. You'll get them all. You'll just say, is there any more VIPs? Yeah. Can you turn them all into VIP? And I'll buy them. No, but that was awesome. So it was good hearing about that and hearing about their plans for that going forward. But of course, we've got more guests coming up as well for that. Who else we got coming up?
Yeah, so we excuse me, I'm still coughing a bit. We have Captain Bolzonia next week. So anybody that's familiar with him on Twitch, so that's going to be interesting. That one, yeah. he's a bit of a live wire. So yeah, it'll be a good one, that one. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Oh, absolutely. That'd be awesome. And Jen, how are you doing today, sir? What you been up to and what you've been playing?
Not too bad. Same as you. It's not really been playing much, apart from Hunt Showdown, really. That's about it. Played a bit of that throughout the week. Not a whole lot, but yeah, I'm kind of not feeling gaming this week, to be honest. So probably going to catch up on some shows instead of when I've got game time playing games. So there's a lot of TV shows I need to catch up on. So I'm going to try and do that. Probably not going to go successfully because there's just too many of them.
Yeah, I still need to start watching the new Vikings Valhalla, which is out and has been out for probably a couple of weeks now, and I haven't even began watching it yet. So we'll see how that goes. Yeah, of course, we started watching The Last of Us. I think the vast majority of us might have seen it by now.
The Last of Us remake. Yeah?
Yeah.
That's right.
Might have seen it by now. You might have sailed the seas to go and watch it, or you might have been able to watch it legitimately. So fingers crossed you have managed to see it. But oh god, Bailey making rent says, "Don't Dutch. The new Vikings is bad." Yeah, the first season wasn't very. It was very slow. They've got a lot to do to catch up with the one that was on Amazon. Put it that way. Got a lot to live up to. But yes, welcome in everybody. Hello to everybody in chat as well. Marion, hello. Bailey making rent, hello. Tony Akami, of course, as his vibrant self as always, making sure he's holding Jen's feet over the flames.
He's
Andrew
waiting
Cullinan.
for Peppa Pig 2 to come out so I can play it.
Hello. Kev, Sean, Jesper, Timmy, and who else? Have I missed anyone? Outbreak Games as well. So far.
Salbo's here too.
Yes, of course.
I think you said barely making rent, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh, where was Sourblue? Did I see him? I can't really. I might have missed him in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Never mind. But hello, everybody, anyway. And anybody who's watching live so far. Like I say, a little bit of a smaller panel this evening, but we've got a few topics to cover over nonetheless. And I think first things first, we'll cover over the kind of inevitable one, should we say, from Ubisoft staff over in Paris. So, of course, last week we had the news, of course, that Yves Guillemot has sent, of course, cancelled 4 Ubisoft games internally so far, unannounced ones. And going forward, they're going to concentrate on their mainline titles, mainline franchises. Of course, we know they've got 2 very large IPs being worked on currently with both Star Wars and Avatar. Both games, of course, were originally scheduled to be out last year and have been pushed back to either later this year or next year. So they're already behind schedule. We already know Beyond Good and Evil's been in hiatus and somewhere deep in the depths for many years. Prince of Persia remake's been sitting in limbo for a number of years. So they've got a lot of stuff that they still have yet to finish. And, of course, essentially what they've been resting on is their generic titles, their Division 2, the Rainbow Six, the Assassin's Creed, to kind of carry them through. Unfortunately, of course, the back end of that was that he emailed staff internally saying essentially the only way we're going to get out of this is if staff pull their fingers out. It's essentially the summarization of the email. Pull your fingers out. It's down to you whether or not we're successful this year. So essentially, it's make or break. And the staff in Ubisoft Paris have called to strike. So Ubisoft Paris developers have called to strike against, saying that the comments were, I've forgotten the exact terminology, but are basically a piss take. Like
go F yourself.
Yeah, like how it's not down to us, as these are all your decisions. So why you come out with these defamatory comments again? And kind of putting all of the blame on us.
Money in NFTs and it backfires on you.
Yeah.
I love the fact they just act as if it wasn't any of their decisions that have got them to the point they're in right now. It isn't the people making the game that made those decisions. It's the people higher up telling them what to do, isn't it? So shocking.
Well, that's the thing with the developers. Like, these are literally developers are literally there to bring your ideas to life, and essentially these ideas are either by the studio directors, or by the board of directors, or the hierarchy above that. So if they're saying, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and we're going to make Beyond Good and Evil 2, and we're going to assign this studio to do that. Okay, but that's not their choice to work on that game. Their studio's been assigned to work on that. And essentially, what Yves Guillemot was saying is, you're just not doing a good enough job, so pull your fingers out. Well, you could say exactly the same for what you've been doing, Yves. Let's face it. It's not like you haven't been the best boss ever, have you? You've had sexual misconduct claims up and down the company. You've had bullying claims up and down the company. Like, this is before the whole issue with Activision Blizzard. Like, this has been going on for years, and it still, to this day, hasn't been completely ironed out. And he's got the cheek to...
Them and Activision were almost having a competition with each other to see who could be the worst.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, EA in the background, they're not exactly glorious.
No.
But Mick, what's your overriding thoughts on kind of the situation going on here? It sounds like, and to be fair, I would expect potentially even more studios to kind of agree with them and potentially call it a strike, or to kind of kick off about this a little bit more.
I mean, I'm all for that. That comment was absolutely uncalled for. You can't blame your staff and put all the weight on them. You can't do that, especially when, like we just said, it's not their fault. They're not the ones that have said, "Oh, I know what will go down well. Let's fill our game. Let's take all this content that we've made and lock it behind paywalls. That should make everyone really happy." It's like, no, of course they're not. They don't want that any more than we want it. But they're being told that's what they got to do. You've got to make us more money. We want more money. Shareholders want money. Everyone wants money. So do it. And they've got to do it. You know what I mean? It's like any of us. We go to work. We get told what to do. And there's very little you can do to change what you've been asked to do. You've just, it's your job, isn't it? You get paid to do what you do. And if you don't do it, they find someone else. So, unless you're being completely unreasonable and doing something that's completely out of the rules of the law, you just kind of have to do your job. So they are literally, you can, what's that say? I can't read that. So there's one of the things that needs showing or hiding. There you go. Yeah, you're a shit CEO. If you're a shit CEO, yeah, it's yeah, they can. If they are a crap CEO, they can ask whatever they want, but it still doesn't make it right. And I'm glad that they're going to strike. It's brilliant. It does make me wonder though. I thought there wasn't much in the way of. Have they got a union?
Yeah.
No, I think the staff have internally just
I was
agreed
going to
to.
say because
Yeah.
I
No, I
thought
think
that
it is. I think it's the union that tweeted about it. They've got there.
That might be
I can't remember whose
might be
video
in
it was I
Paris.
was watching.
It might actually be a
But,
local workers union in Paris or something like that with regards to
Right.
their workers' laws.
I can't remember whose
That's
video it was that I watched this morning on it, but I think they are unionized,
right. That's good.
at
But
least in
at least
Paris.
some of them, yeah. Good on them though. Yeah, no, I'm all for it. They shouldn't have to put up with that, and it shouldn't be down to them at all.
Yeah, completely agree. Jen, what's your thoughts on the situation?
I mean, his entire email is just embarrassing. Like to say all the words he said in the email, and I haven't got it to read. So, but yeah, like listening to what people have said about the email, and then seeing the tweets that the person put out there, basically going through the details of the email. It's ridiculous that these words would come out of a CEO's mouth. So, yeah, I'm not surprised that they're getting ready to strike. And whether these strikes continue is another thing. But I can't really see him going back on his words. He's a bit of a knob cheese. That's me putting it lightly. I've got
It's
a
a
few other
case of
choice words that I would say for him, but they're not too savoury, those words. So I'll save those words for off the air.
it's a case
But
of
yeah,
as
it needs to
in
happen.
any workplace, like shit falls from the top essentially. So yes, of course, it goes down and down and down. Like yeah, of course, as always. But ultimately, you're all in it together. So to try and pass the buck to everybody else, as if you're not in the right, and you haven't done anything wrong, it's just
They've
bewildering
made
that
so many
you've.
stupid decisions. The NFTs, the let's put 5 teams or more teams working on Assassin's Creed. Let's put a team that's really not well established on a Prince of Persia game and then take them off of it. And then this whole thing with the Splinter Cell reboot, I've got no faith in what's going on with Ubisoft. Not so much the developers, but the chain of people above the developers that have no idea what the hell it is they're doing. They want to blame all their mistakes on the people that are making the games. It's not their fault. You're the one telling them what to do. You're the one putting them on God knows how many damn Assassin's Creed games that are rinse and repeat bullshit. Why? Why Assassin's Creed games? People have already had enough of Assassin's Creed games coming out when they were coming out every year. So your immediate decision is to double down on that and put more teams on Assassin's Creed games that they probably didn't want to work on.
And to kind of put it into more context, we touched on this last week, but Ubisoft as a group have over 20,000 staff. Now, to put that into further context, Microsoft, the second largest company in the world, have 220,000 staff. So, of course, it's a large organization. That's massive. But when you're talking solely just a game developer and publisher, they are one of the largest in terms of staff count in the world, if not the largest in terms of staff count in the world, with 20,000 staff just at Ubisoft. It's a significant amount of people. And again, we mentioned this last week, but that's also a significant amount of management and kind of trickle down decisions and bad organization and just essentially not being able to collaborate with any of them. It's just mad. It's mad. I don't know how he thinks he can just I'm just gonna blame let's say even if we take out 1,000 of those for management. If we blame 19,000 developers for our issues.
He's either sniffing glue or doing some sort of drug that he shouldn't be doing because his email is just not all the ticket.
So sorry, I'll say that again because I muted myself. Ubisoft Paris of all teams have stood up and said absolutely not. And I hope other teams stand up and do exactly the same thing. It depends, I suppose, whether certain teams feel like this is directed at them or whether the certain teams feel like it's not directed at them because they've been working on Assassin's Creed and theirs has been coming out on time, or they've been working on this and they've been coming out on time. It could have been essentially certain people at certain studios thinking, wait a minute, you've had us lumbered on this Prince of Persia remake that no one wanted to do in the first place for years, and it's languished with bad decision making. It's like, and then another team saying, well, we're happy working on the Star Wars thing, but you've given us an unrealistic expectation and time frame to create this brand new world and have it out by. Same for the Avatar guys. It depends on what teams are really frustrated by this, but I can understand why they would be annoyed by the messaging that's come out of him, because at no point do you start to kind of blame the entirety of your staff and essentially exonerate yourself from all blame. And essentially that's what he's doing. Our company's not performing well and it's down to our staff is essentially the summarization of why. I just don't get it. I don't get why you would come out as a boss of a company, the CEO of a company. You don't go out and say the only reason our company's doing so bad and did so bad last year was because of the staff, and you guys need to pull your fingers out and you're the only people that are going to be able to sort the situation out. Well, no, your management and your management team are the ones that are to blame. They're the ones that are in charge of all of these staff. You're the one directing all of these developers and artists and voice actors and everybody that is involved in the development process. Your management. So manage your teams better. Essentially, manage them better, give them better direction.
And stop investing in shit ideas like NFTs.
Yeah, and this is exactly the reason why Square Enix are going down the hill. It's like they have double, triple down on blockchain and NFTs. They've literally said, no, we're just going to go full bore into blockchain and NFTs. Like, what are you doing? Why?
They'll never learn. They've got ego complexes, the leaders at those companies.
Yeah, it's just wild. I just don't understand. I don't understand his vision. I don't understand his thought process when he put that email out. I can understand trying to rally the troops and get them to do that, but really he needed to essentially encompass himself into that comment. I think he wouldn't have had the backlash if he said, "Listen, we have not had the best of years. We need to do better." If he included himself within that, we need to do better. I know we can. If it's an all-encompassing thing, but he didn't at any point say we need to do better. We have made mistakes. We can get through this, and like this year's gonna be like we're gonna do really well. Encourage them. You don't put them down. Essentially, that email to me looked like he was just belittling the staff and saying, "Listen, you haven't done good enough. Pull your fingers out."
Mm-hmm.
It was like a public blasting, essentially.
Yeah, well, they keep investing in terrible game ideas as well, like that X-Defiant, which was originally it had the Tom Clancy name slapped onto it just because they wanted to sell it or make people download it and buy it because it was going to be free to play, I think. So they were expecting that to do well just because it had Tom Clancy name slapped to it.
And then Tom Clancy said, "No."
There was the whole uproar with people saying that this isn't a Tom Clancy game. You just slapped the Tom Clancy name on it. He'd be turning in his grave right now.
Absolutely. And this is the problem. This is what I've been saying for years. Like, the amount, if you have a look through the entire back catalogue of Tom Clancy books and all that he's created through his awesome work through the years, his great, like, all of his storylines he's created and all of his different universes and like his spy universes and things like that. And instead of looking at any of these other new IPs and ideas and stories and worlds that you could create from his many works, they went, let's just create a battle royale type thing and stick his name on it. He's never ever once in any of his books talked about some futuristic battle royale. So what has that got to do with Tom Clancy? Like, it's bonkers. And this is part of the issue with them as well. And we've said the same with Ghost Recon Wildlands, and which was okay, but then Breakout, which was not great. It got okay over time, but ultimately it wasn't great. Then you've got to talk about, of course, the way Valhalla was received. Now, obviously, I enjoyed the game, but I absolutely agree that the game was far too long. Like, by the time I completed the game, it was 70 odd hours. And that wasn't including all the side content. And I can agree for those who don't have a heavy enjoyment or heavy enthusiasm for the Vikings or Norse or Nordic mythology or anything like that. You're just gonna get bored ultra quick. Like, it was such a beautiful world. The combat was fun. The storyline was cool, but it was stretched out far too long, and that's part of their issue. Like, this stayed beyond their welcome. This is the problem. We've spoke about this with the Assassin's Creeds anyway. Odyssey, what was the other one as well? Yeah, Odyssey, Origins, and Valhalla. They didn't need to be an Assassin's Creed. They could have been separate titles. And Assassin's Creeds that they've already named, which they did kind of a cyberpunk and said, listen, this is our next 10, 15 years worth of Assassin's Creed that we're in development. We've got the new one, Mirage, coming out this year, which is a shorter one. It's like 20 hours. Then we've got the Japanese one. We've got this Celtic one. We've got this other one. It's like, okay, so we've got like 5 Assassin's Creed games in the works. Brill.
Too much Assassin's Creed.
What else? Like, bring us the new ideas. What happened to Ubisoft Originals with Child of Light, which was phenomenal?
Yeah.
Like, there were so many original games that they had, and obviously that war one, was it This War of Mine, or was it another one? The
Warden as well.
Oh yeah. But they've had so many little titles that could have been elaborated on, and or had little sequels or made big universe of them, and then they had Phoenix.
Hawks.
Yes, Hawks as well. Yeah, Tom Clancy's
I
Hawks.
liked Hawks. Hawks was great. I mean, the game kept breaking and stopped giving achievements, and once it did that, it wouldn't give you them ever again, which was why we stopped playing. But that was a
Yeah.
great game. It was a great fight. It's not simulator, but not quite arcade. It's kind of a bit like Ace Combat, wasn't it? Sort of a little bit arcade. So I suppose it's like the Forza Horizon.
Yeah, it was a Forza Horizon of simulators.
Not quite as simulated, but fun. That was a great game. I loved Hawks.
And again, but then they just leave off them things and then just stick to the normal, and then you've got fucking Skull and Bones. Jesus Christ.
Skull and Boned.
Like, and their decision to push that back even... No, just don't. Just get it out. Just get it out. Fix it whilst it's out. And just work on it that way, because it's...
The thing is, they can't even cancel that IP because they're obligated to bring that out for some sort of deal with the Singapore government.
The government, yeah. Polish government, I think it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So they have to bring that IP out, otherwise they're gonna...
You know what they'll do, though? They'll just end up just going, fuck it, throw it out. Just let it get out there and let it die and move on and just pretend it never happened. That's what will happen in the end.
Ultimately, that's what they need to do, and it's not a case of just letting it die either. For me personally, it's a case of get it out, have a small team, make sure the servers are fine, you correct all the little bugs and things when it's out. You keep like some basic games as a service stuff going on there. If it somehow hits when it released, then brilliant. If it doesn't, then it doesn't, and then you just go, okay, goodbye. But as Sean pointed out in chat there, £70 for Skull and Bones, absolutely not. You need to correct that immediately. That game needs to be like £40.
Needs to go in PlayStation Plus and Xbox Gamepass.
Yeah,
because there's no way.
That game, I guarantee that game will hit Game Pass and PlayStation Plus very quickly.
Well, the problem is as well is like it's not even us, because we were like I wasn't interested in it anyway. I was like, listen, this is doing nothing that Sea of Thieves isn't doing better already. Like it's got ship combat, and the ship combat in there is like really mundane. You are the ship captain, but you also fire all the weapons, but you also do X, Y, and Z. And on Sea of Thieves, it feels much better because you're the ship captain, but you're controlling your crew who's on the cannons, and they have the choice of where they're firing it. And it's so much more realistic as a pirate environment than it is you firing all the guns and steering the ship. That doesn't work.
That's the problem with Skull and Bones. It's got no vision. For a pirate game, it's got very little vision. There's more to pirating than sailing around in a ship. Where's the going to islands to look for plunder and all that?
Yeah, the adventure aspect of it, like you don't. I think the problem they've got is I think if they tried to do Skull and Bones as a pirate game, they would ultimately fall back on their standard exploration mechanics that they've got in any other Assassin's Creed game, and it will feel exactly like an Assassin's Creed game. Which is why they don't want to put in this exploration mechanic, because they don't know how to do, especially in kind of that kind of world, they don't know how to do anything that doesn't feel like Assassin's Creed. Like if they involved...
Could have done it as an MMO.
No, they could have. They could have done it.
This online ship combat game. They could have done such a better vision and had the game be an MMO, a pirate MMO, where you and your friends can form a massive pirate alliance, go and explore the Seven Seas and all the lands in between the Seven Seas, and level up and all that good stuff. And then you got your PvP side where you go to war with other pirate factions that are handled by other players. But no, they wanted to just do this generic ship sailing battle crap where you don't actually do anything apart from tell your shipmates what to do.
Yeah, it's just a PvE universe, and that's it. There's literally nothing to it. That's the problem. There is no adventure in it. It's collect loot, upgrade your ship. Collect loot, upgrade your ship. Collect loot, upgrade your ship. There's no adventure. There's no stories. It's just basic stuff, and that the problem is if it did release at that, there's no real content to go for it, and that's the problem. And I agree, of course, with Bailey. Of course, we don't want games released broken and fixed after, but in the place of this specific title, and I've said this, I said this last week as well. Yeah, 7. This is the 7th delay it's had. Now, if it was a normal game and it's a case of no, we don't want a Starfield release broken, we don't want a Halo release broken, we don't want a Last of Us, we don't want a God of... None of those games should release broken, thereby monstrous studios. But when it's a game that's been in development since I think 2016, and it's been delayed in fact, it's longer than that because it was originally meant to be released in 2017, got delayed to 18, then 19, then 20,
development for
21,
8 years,
22.
right? 8 years.
Yeah,
Well,
8 years.
I think it'll be 9 years by the time it actually comes out.
Yeah, and with this
like-
amount of delays, it's a case of, you know what it is, just you had something in beta, it was playable in beta. It wasn't that it was terrible, it was because the content was rubbish. Release what you've got and put the content in, because at this point, you're in a lose-lose situation. You release the game, and it doesn't do well, and you're going to lose money in the game, it's terrible. Or you delay the game, less people become interested, you're going to have tons of cancellations, because, let's face it, if you have a look at any of the people that were originally hyped for the game, that wanted something different to Sea of Thieves, all I saw underneath their latest delay was, that's it, I've had enough, and then just, I've cancelled my pre-order. And no, this was probably about the 8th time they've pre-ordered the game, because every time they've pre-ordered it, it's cancelled. So, they're in a lose-lose situation. You release the game, it doesn't do well, and you just fix it as it goes and hope that you get player base, or you delay it until next year, which is what the plan is, and by that point, nobody gives a shit anyway, and it's released and nobody picks it up.
The recent delay they had, not the one that just happened, but the one before, they had a date for it and everything. And now this one, it's just 2023 summertime, right? They reckon there's no actual concrete date, so that tells me that they expect it to be delayed again.
Oh, they've said, from what I saw, they said the beta would be dropping this year at some point. The beta. But the game was scheduled for release in 2024. So the actual release of the game was 2024, but the beta was some point this year. I have no idea.
I think their biggest problem was Sea of Thieves came out and they were like, shit, how do we go about not being Sea of Thieves? And they could have just carried on chipping away, and they could have been the realistic version.
Yeah, the realistic looking version of Sea of Thieves. And the problem, I think the side fact is because everybody looks at it and goes, oh, it's going to be Black Flag, but without the Assassin's Creed. I think their issue is, how do we create something that has the fun of the ship combat from Black Flag, with the added vision of all these extra bits, but without having the land kind of exploration of Black Flag, without feeling like Assassin's Creed. I think that was where they've lacked the vision. They don't know how to make something in that world with that setting that doesn't feel like Assassin's Creed when you come to the piratey exploration. Like, the ship combat we probably could have forgiven if it had anything else to the game. But because it is literally just PvP, PvE ship combat, and all you do is upgrade your ship, and you go around and collect loot, which ultimately upgrades your ship, but none of the islands that you go to have anything other than things to upgrade your ship, and there's nothing actually to do on these islands other than go to these separate trade sections. Like, that, then where is what is the vision for this game? Like, where is it actually going? Is this just a ship battle royale? And if that's the case, then why are you pricing it at 70 quid?
I take from it. And like, there's no legit shipboarding. You can't go on any of the islands to actually loot items for yourself.
Sorry about that.
It's okay.
It's okay.
Mick,
what was that about? What was he saying?
Well, we're actually talking about the lack of vision in Skull and Bones, and as somebody who's played the beta, I know you probably can't go too in depth too much on it due to NDAs and things, but what would you say is the fundamental issues that are going to cause this game problems?
Like you say, it's difficult for me to say anything. I can say I am a fan of Assassin's Creed games as much as they've been the same thing over and over. And I'm looking forward to Mirage because it's more like the old ones.
That's the only one I'm looking forward to. I couldn't care less about the other four.
Yeah,
5 that are in
I
development.
really enjoyed Odyssey, but the other two I could take or leave. But the good thing about Assassin's Creed games is that you get like hidden blades and you can run around and stealth people. And I'm trying to see what I can say. Without that, there's not much left.
It just seems like there's very little scope and vision. They
Mm.
didn't really have a concrete idea of what they were going to do with this game.
There's a lot of what I saw was I can't really say much. It's just it didn't do anything for me. That's all I can say. So
What would you say their vision is then? Like, having played it, what would you, without talking about the game directly, from what you've seen, what is the vision of this game? Like, what is the purpose of this game?
Fetch quests. That's
all the parts of the Assassin's Creed games I can't stand.
Is it just because what I described essentially when you were putting the little one to bed was ultimately these fetch quests are singularly and the only purpose is to upgrade the ship. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I can't say for sure, but from what I can gather, yes.
I mean, from all the gameplay that's been shown, that is what you do. That is really
from the gameplay that we've seen. The whole basis of the game seems to be get the biggest and meanest looking ship, and then take it out and fight other people, or fight bit like Sea of Thieves, fight other people.
Ubisoft fashion, you're going to be grinding a lot.
Yeah, would be what I would assume is what is the aim. So,
what from a technical standpoint, did the game actually work or perform in its beta stance? Did it work?
Yes, but you could tell it was a beta, which I've done a few betas for Ubisoft, and I will say that they do get noticeably better over quite a short period towards the end. So I wasn't really paying any attention to that because I know no matter what you see on that, it's never the final product with them. We've said in the past with demos, when companies have to make demos, when they used to have to make a demo for E3, they would start working. They would take a chunk of a game. So let's take Gears, for instance. If you remember the Gears 4 for it, actually is a good example. The Gears 4 demo had people up in arms because it looked awful. And it was the first game that the Coalition had done since the change from Epic. And when that demo came out, everyone was like, whoa, they have screwed this game. This game is going to be awful. Everything is wrong with this. The graphics look like crap. The game runs like rubbish, blah, 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 blah. And when it came out, 3 months later, I mean, if you've played Gears 4, even when it came out and it didn't have the 60, I think, did it have the 60 frames mode?
Don't think that release it did. No, I think it got patched in after because it got the Xbox One X enhancements.
Yes. So it came out and it looked amazing. Like it did look the absolute, the works. Yeah, it didn't have the 30 frames. It did have the 60 frames, but back then we weren't really attuned to it. Was 60 frames wasn't really a thing, so we were used to 30, and it was a good 30. The Ubisoft games are very similar to that. The when you play them early in early access, they tend to look awful. But you've got to remember that when you're testing, pretty much most games do, because it's a slice of the game that works from months before, or at least works to a point where they can test what they're trying to find out, works. So it's a very old chunk of the game that they've then polished. It's the rest of the game has carried on being developed, and they're still working on that tiny bit that they had to cut out so that they can get a testing stage in and do some work to find out balancing and all that other stuff that we had, that we need later on in the game. So yeah, what I saw of it didn't look great, but I would always say you cannot take, you should never take a demo at least, but certainly an alpha or beta. Never take that as the final product. They are
Yeah,
not
we're
anywhere near
miles away
finished.
from years gone where Watch
Yeah.
Dogs released. Remember Watch Dogs that release? Oh dear God!
Can't help but remember Watch Dogs. It was the only sort of open world game that was available at Xbox One at the beginning. So yeah, it was one of the first games I bought. Yeah, wasn't good. Completed it, but yeah.
I think ultimately
It's not
for us the concerning part about this, and this kind of encompasses the issue that Ubisoft have, is vision. I think
Yeah.
the visions are in the wrong place, not just for this game, but as a wider scope across the company. The vision is completely in the wrong place. To be honest, Sean, I loved Watch Dogs as well, but from what they previously showed, like, it was at that moment, and it was that point in time where people were showing off a lot of games, in E3 trailers and previews and gameplay previews, and then when it come to release, it was completely different, and it looked nothing like it, played nothing like it. It was performing terribly. So of course it was a brand new IP, and I think people enjoyed what they played, but it certainly was a letdown compared to what it was originally announced. But I think ultimately Ubisoft suffer from just a vision issue across the entirety of them. And again, as Jen mentioned, their focus on NFTs and things just completely side-skirted them, and put them in the wrong track, and they ultimately canned a lot of their NFT stuff off the back of that, because it didn't really get implemented properly and didn't really work. I think they put it into Ghost Recon for a little bit and then canned that.
And then canned development on that game.
Yeah. But then you have a look across the board.
Saying
Like,
that NFTs they'd be around forever and you'd be able to sell them on. Right. You canned the game, mate.
yeah.
I would be interested to, because we know that Skull and Bones had several iterations. We had there was a reboot at some point, if not two reboots of Skull and Bones. It got reset, didn't it? Or at least they went back a bit and changed it. It'd be interesting to have seen what it was like originally, because, like you say, there's a vision problem. It almost feels like maybe they did try and do something different, but when everybody, and you've seen it, you will have seen it online, when everybody complained that you can't leave the ship, you can't go away, and you can't, get off the ship and do anything.
The only way you get off the ship is at the hub. That's it.
Yeah. 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 Not sure. Again, I can't say much, but there is. I will say there is stuff off the boat, like, just think Assassin's Creed and the boat bits. It's what I saw was Assassin's Creed in the boat bits, just without the hidden blades.
Yeah. This is what I said before to Jen as well. I said this is an issue they're gonna have, is if they try to do online stuff, it'll feel like Assassin's Creed.
Exactly. Yeah.
So ultimately it's a vision thing. They don't know what direction to do with any of it. They just don't know what direction to go with for Ghost Recon. They don't know what direction to go with for Assassin's Creed. Like, Assassin's Creed, ultimately what they've done this time around is saying, listen, we've heard what you've said. You want to go back to the old Assassin's Creed. So what we're doing is we're going to make a small 20-hour linear Assassin's Creed that's more like the originals. But then we're also going to have two massive open world ones. One's set in Japan, the other one's more Celtic with about witches and things like that. Yeah, that's it. So they're saying, okay, so you're just sticking to the same vision.
For a Ghost Recon game. Don't make it open world. Continue from Ghost Recon.
It's not that it doesn't need to be open world. It's just like, even if it was semi-open world without a hub, and it doesn't even need to be massively multiplayer online, which was essentially what it ended up being. It ended up being this weird mix of, here's a hub world, and like there's 40 people standing around waiting to do missions, and then you leave that spot, and then you're in a single player environment. What? Like, why have this online hub world
do an
section
MMO or
and then
don't
turn
do
it
an
into single player?
MMO open world game. I mean,
Just a s-
Division could have been interesting if it was a massive open world MMO thing, and then you're just running around the streets, and occasionally you come across someone else that's doing different missions, and you can interact with each other. Why couldn't they do that? Instead, they've got to have these hub zones where you can see players, and then you step out of that hub zone, and they're gone like that.
Mm.
Yeah, it also makes it like an absolute pointless section of the game. Like, why would you have that in Break? Why at all would you have that in Breakpoint? Why have a hub section, and then as soon as you leave that hub section, none of them players are there anymore? They're all gone. What's the point in having a hub section if none of those players are in the world you are operating in? That's like having not even a semi MMO. It's just like a really pointless section of the game that doesn't need to exist. I don't understand
It's
it.
the illusion of an MMO, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then, again, the game doesn't need to be. Like, if you have a thing, it even just, like, the way Call of Duty's went about their missions, even recently, some of their missions are semi-open world. You've kind of got an area to be to. You've got a mission from point A to point B. And if you go back to Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter and all of the previous Ghost Recons before that, these were more of a Battlefield linear experience where you had these awesome missions, you had this story, you had these missions to do from point A to point B, etc. And as a Ghost Recon operative, you kind of went about as a team of ghosts, and you kind of had to do all these kind of really tactical situations in these kind of big environments, but it didn't require being massively open world, because when you go to that section, you end up just being essentially like an army. Like, if you're going to be doing that, then essentially in a huge open world, you were an army of operatives. You're slugging across this huge open world. I understood the original vision for Wildlands, and Wildlands was okay, but Breakpoint just kind of lost. Like, they just said, "Oh, we'll just do more of the same in a different environment."
So
But it
I'm
doesn't.
of the mind that I didn't like Wildlands either.
But there wasn't
Couldn't
any.
stand it.
But there wasn't any ultimate story to it. It was just it's just loads like drug dealers and weapons dealers, and you got to go and take them down. Okay, great. But then if you have a look at the original kind of Ghost Recons and things like that, there was like a point. Okay, you were going against terrorists, and you've got to kind of infiltrate the terrorists in these towns, and you take them out, and then the story's kind of progressing as you go along. But there wasn't a story per se. You just had these people you had to take out, and it got progressively harder. And this country that you were in had a giant army, and you were being hunted by this army whilst you were going along, and they had drones and planes that could X, Y, and Z. Like, you don't have, like, the vision doesn't need to be that grandiose for it, because that then just takes away from what Ghost Recon was. Simmer it down a bit, have it a semi-open world, but have dedicated missions. Just go back to those set dedicated missions. What we loved about Battlefield's missions, and Battlefield, not Hardline, but the
Never even
original
played Hardline.
Battlefield 4's mission, like, story campaign was great. The reason Call of Duty did so well this year wasn't just the online, but the actual campaign itself was really entertaining. I just think the issue Ubisoft have in general, and I think most people would say this, is they are lacking vision for what to do with their IPs in general. Where do we take them next? How do we go on with them without milking them, without it just feeling like a copy and paste? And that's what the issue has been personally with the Assassin's Creed. As much as people have enjoyed them, they're just new settings with the same mechanics, and then they're just putting the Assassin's Creed title on
Ubisoft
it.
also have this trend chasing ideal at the moment as well. They tried that trend chasing with the battle royale. It failed. They ended up shit canning that. What was it called? Hyperscape or something like that.
Yeah.
They shit canned that, and then they have this X
And
Defiant
that
game.
roller skating thing as well. Roller something or other.
Yeah, I think I know which one you're talking about. And that
But
one
they
didn't go
have
far.
this they have this thing where they think they can quickly make a game and chase the trend, but the games they are they're trying to make to chase these trends are uninspired. There's no scope. There's no vision to them. It's just like, oh, we can do that. No, you can't. It takes a little bit more than copy and paste. You got to
Mhm.
have something else there to latch people into it, something of interest that keeps people hooked. And they don't seem to know what that is, and it's
Yep.
hilarious.
Yep. But blame the developers because it's all their fault. It's their vision apparently. It's they're not. It's not
the
like
heads
they're
of those
just carrying out the
studios,
vision.
and it goes even beyond that. Like, it goes all the way up the chain to the top. If their CEO is saying we need a game that needs to be exactly like Warzone or exactly like Fortnite or exactly like this racing game, go and make it as quick as you can. Snap. It needs to be out 2 years time, less than that.
Yeah. That's the problem. Is they like Sean put there, they chase the trend after it starts to die. Actually, they start to make the game when the trend is happening, but by the time they've made it and released it, the trend has changed, so it's out of date.
They need to start focusing on making their own trends.
Yeah.
And stop chasing the trends that are halfway through or already dead.
Yep. This is ultimately what we've been saying about the Halo Battle Royale. Like, as much as people might want it, by the time that thing actually comes out, no one's going to care. Because everyone's played Battle Royales.
Battle Royale needs to do something serious to change the genre of Battle Royales. It needs to be the same tagline as was in the first Halo game. Combat evolved. They need to evolve Battle Royale. And I don't see that happening.
Nope, because ultimately what you're going to end up with is a game that that looks like a Halo, but ultimately you'll feel like what's that other Battle Royale that came out that was very popular? It still is. With all the sliding about and the powers and things like that.
Apex.
Yes. Ultimately, it's going to feel a bit like that if you start adding like Spartan powers into it in a battle royale. So the issue is how can Halo be too much different? Like what we said originally was the only way a battle royale would actually make sense is if it was ODST, not Spartans. Because if everyone's a Spartan, it's gonna make it too easy. If you're ODST and you're picking up different armor parts and things like that, and that makes sense, and you're picking up a new weapon and you can attachment on a weapon and a scope or something. Yeah, fair enough.
The thing we've all said it would make sense to be ODSTs, but they won't. Inevitably, they won't listen. It makes perfect sense to be an ODST, and you drop from the sky in a drop pod, and you land wherever the fuck you want.
Yep.
That's not going to be what we get though.
Ultimately, as Shom said, chasing a trend after it's dead. We've seen what's happened. Like literally the only battle royales that are still going now that are semi-successful are Apex, Fortnite, and Warzone. And to break that mold would be nigh on impossible because they've got pretty die-hard fan bases now. They've got pretty die-hard players. Even PUBG, which was once a mega star in the battle royale segment, has started to fall off significantly. I don't see anybody mentioning PUBG these days. I see a very rare account of somebody playing it. I think there's one person I know that still plays that. And hats off if you still enjoy it. That's fair enough. Like every now and again, I like jumping to PUBG. It's more realistic. It's definitely more tense at the end, but it doesn't give the same feeling anymore. Like I don't have the time to dive into a game like that. But the quick burst ones, your Apex is where it's very quick and it's like you just need to do things really quickly, and Warzone where again it's very quick, and Fortnite where it's very quick. PUBG's slow. It's slow. It's a completely different environment.
The points of those battle royale games as well is they know how to make those battle royales work with evolving that battle royale over
and they're
time.
all different.
Take a look at Fortnite.
All of them are different.
How Fortnite changes with every update. They always add something new that changes the game. And that's something I don't think that they'll ever do with a Halo Battle Royale, because they'll launch that game and they'll fail drastically to keep the content pipeline flowing like they have been.
Exactly. And Sean, exactly the point. He says they need to start making an engaging game that doesn't look like a reskin of what they've already done. I missed the one more thing at E3. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the only thing that they've done recently that got pretty much overlooked and is undervalued was that Phoenix. Phoenix Rising, I think it was called.
Great game. Yeah.
And that was it. The first time they did
Immortals.
something new.
Immortals, Phoenix Rising.
Yeah.
I didn't complete it, but I will say, out of all the Ubisoft open world games, that was the best one
I
that I played.
I did complete that one, and it was good. I enjoyed that. I was looking forward to the DLC, and then it's one of those things. I got sidetracked, never went back. Did touch on the DLC, went back and tried to play it, but there was too many other things to play, so never finished it. One game
Yeah.
that I am probably more worried about, and I'm sure Shom's probably going to back me up on this one. That Ubisoft make is that they announced a while back now, which was the remake, a new Splinter Cell. I cannot stress how worried I am.
I said it
about
last
that
week.
game.
There's only one reason why they're remaking that. It's because they were close
because
to
they're desperate.
losing that IP, because it was coming close to that 10-year mark, and
Yeah.
they got around the 8-year mark, and they were like, shit, we don't think about making a Splinter Cell game real fast. They're going to take the IP off of us.
And this is the
So
issue.
is it the Tom Clancy bit that they're going to lose, or is it the Splinter Cell? Is it?
They'll lose Splinter Cell as an IP. They won't be able to use the name because it's Tom Clancy's IP, right?
Is it their? So the Tom Clancy company, let's say, they own the name Splinter Cell.
I think it's his publishing company Rubicon that own the name. So it'll probably be his children that own that now, because obviously he's no longer with us.
Yeah. I'm just so worried about that game. I can't imagine what the. I've got zero. Yeah, I think the best way to go at it is to just not have any hopes at all, and then hopefully it'll be good, and I'll be happily surprised.
Over time, I've lost all interest in Ubisoft games.
Yeah.
And they used to make some of my favorite shooters of all time. Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter 1 and 2 were bloody cutting edge shooters back in the day. Rainbow Six Vegas 1 and 2. Cutting edge shooters back in the day. Now what do they make?
Yeah.
Uninspired, rinse and repeat garbage.
Yep. I agree. And this is the thing, this is where third parties need to stop pulling the fingers out, because they've been entrusted with these highly valuable IPs. Like Ubisoft have had Tom Clancy's since day dot. They've had since day dot, and they don't know what to do with that IP anymore, despite the fact that they've got unlimited resources created by Tom Clancy, with a back catalogue of books and stories and lore to go against and create new IPs as much as they want. But they choose to just use the name and stick it on any old generic shit that they come up with that has nothing to do with them. And this is an issue again with Splinter Cell. Like, Splinter Cell itself was, again, part of his whole back catalogue of IP, and something that they haven't elaborated on or went into too much depths of the actual full-on stories that he's created for it. So, same went for Ghost Recon. There's so many different stories that they could have went with, and they haven't. But ultimately, I think, like I say, to kind of cap off the Ubisoft section of this show, I think we all agree the main issue for them is vision, and of course we stand by the staff in booting off with them. I think Yves Guillemot needs to take accountability for himself as well. He's ultimately the management. He's the guy, the decision maker. He needs to take responsibility. He's obviously got a shafting from his shareholders, but
he won't.
But he has to, unfortunately, because at the end of the day, he can sack as many staff as he wants, and he can get rid of as many staff as he wants, but he's not going to end up getting games created for him, because they're the guys he needs. So he needs to be a little bit better with these. He needs to definitely do better by his staff, and he needs to take responsibility. But yeah. Next up on our agenda for this evening, of course, we're going to cover off these weird rumors. So after Xbox announced the Xbox Direct, and I don't know where these little rumors came out, but two games that were announced within the Direct were then subsequently rumored to be delayed. Both Forza rumored to be delayed, and Starfield pushed back to potentially Q4 2023. No. I don't know where these rumors come from or who creates them, to be honest. It's a bit of a strange one to
4chan.
yeah, or Reddit.
Reddit. Yeah.
But whoever comes up, it doesn't make any sense because specifically within these things, it's the point of Developer Direct and what they stated within this blog post originally was diving deeper into the games with the developers set to come out over the next couple of months. So if they're saying that in the blog post that these games are coming out within the next few months, why are you now saying 2 of these major games are not going to be coming out within the next couple of months? That doesn't make any sense.
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like a 4chan rumor.
Yeah.
I mean, it's typical that as soon as we have one of these things announced and it's a bit of good news, there's always these rumors appear. I just tend to not listen to them anymore. I want solid announcements, official ones about this stuff. Otherwise, I'm just not
I just
interested.
remember that rumor recently about Phil Spencer apparently getting ready to quit Xbox, and that just makes me laugh.
Yeah, I seen that. That was funny.
Yeah, that one made me laugh.
It's ridiculous. These people not sit down and think, "Oh, this sounds stupid. This rumor. I think I should maybe sit here and think about a better rumor that sounds a little bit more convincing." Yeah.
Yeah.
It was also in the same rumor that he was going to step down, that Microsoft were going to sell off Xbox because it wasn't profitable. I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, so this is the same company. This is the same company that's spending £70 billion on an acquisition and is fighting it in court. Is going to now just close down Xbox.
Sell off the Xbox branch. Just sell it to Sony for a nice 10 quid.
10 quid.
I don't know what they're smoking on these things, but Jesus wept. They must be smoking something high. But no, so to anybody seeing any of these wild rumors saying Redfall, Forza, or Starfield are going to be pushed back into the latter part of 2023, no, that's not the case. They're intentionally doing this Developer Direct to get these release dates out to you.
And there was that whole Starfield website update recently that basically stated it's coming in the first half of this year.
Yeah.
So where are these rumors coming from? People just pull shit out of their arse.
Yeah.
It's again, it's when this for some reason, and I don't know what it is, and this isn't like stoke the console wars or anything, but for some reason, every time Xbox releases good news, somebody has to go out there and put out some stupid rumor that contradicts the news that Xbox are putting out. Like, oh well, look,
with more time on their hands than they should have. And
I absolutely guarantee that this, because of course they had news yesterday, today, and onwards, of course, that not Xbox, but Microsoft, among many other large technology companies, are releasing thousands of staff. So Xbox, I keep saying that. Microsoft are going to be releasing 10,000 staff, unfortunately.
It's across all their divisions, right?
Yeah, across all their divisions. So it's a multitude. A lot of them apparently are engineering. But that's mainly because they're kind of streamlining how many staff they need working on engineering down to their advancements with AI and investments with AI to try and kind of streamline that process and make it easier. But of course, also overheads. Now, this doesn't mean Microsoft is in dire straits. Unfortunately, these things are happening across the entire industry, technology industry. There's thousands of staff losing their jobs, and it's never a good time. It's never a great thing, great news to come into, especially at the beginning of the year. But it's not to say that these staff aren't going to be repositioned elsewhere, or they aren't going to be put in or essentially given kind of high praise and saying, okay, we'll help you get jobs elsewhere, because it could be the case that they help them do that. There's going to be a lot of people looking for jobs. There's a lot of technology companies in the world. These people will no doubt be able to find work relatively quickly. It's a bad situation. Microsoft are still hiring in other sections, just not in engineering. They're still, of course, investing in multitudes of things, as we know. Not only that, but on the completion of the acquisition of Activision Blizzard, they're going to be attaining 20,000 staff. They're going to be actually, sorry, incorrect. They're going to be attaining 10,000 more staff. So the 10,000 have let go in other areas of the business. They're going to be acquiring in game developers for the Activision Blizzard side. No doubt, and I have got absolutely no doubt, when that has complete, they're going to be looking across the board at roles that do not need to be there anymore. It is part of an acquisition process. They're going to be going top to bottom and going to be going, right, okay, how do we streamline this situation to make it more efficient? It's a part of an acquisition, unfortunately. So I would also assume some staff
will do that at some point in their time.
Exactly.
It's that time of year though, isn't it? I mean, I don't know what it's like with you guys with your work, but it's quiet for us at the moment, and we're lucky to be, sort of we sort of allow for this, the rough with the smooth, as we call it. We have times where we get a lot of hours that we don't get paid for, and certainly in the run up to Christmas. But the understanding is always, but come January, we're going to be home early, finished. And there's none of this making us feel guilty for being home early because we were putting in the hours beforehand. So, I'm lucky in the sense that we get away with that with our company, but a lot of these companies don't do that. They come to this time of the year, business dies down because everyone's recovering from Christmas, and job layoffs become a common thing in the sort of January, February period of most years. So
I think we've also got to take into account like the fact that the world is in the current climate the world is in. It's not great.
We're in a recession, So
again, I think what people assume is that these mega companies, these huge tech companies, and it's like, oh, it's because they can't afford to pay the salaries. It's not specifically that. It's the area. It's the actual area in which that they're working has far less work to do, so it becomes less efficient to be paying the salaries of the workers that are in that particular role. So you have to essentially make them redundant because their roles are no longer required for that particular purpose. It's horrible. Don't get us wrong, it's absolutely horrible. It's not that they can't afford to pay their salaries, but they need to refine it and make it more efficient, because having people sitting around twiddling their thumbs because there's not much to do is not an efficient way of working. And if there's if they're investing in AI, which they are, and they've got their own AI, and they're investing more in this chat GPT thing as well to ensure that kind of processes and resolutions are a lot quicker, then of course the need for certain staff is far less as well. And of course it's going to streamline the process even more so. So the business will become more efficient, and it obviously is a shitty thing that people lose their jobs because of it. But the industry is still ever growing. There's not going to be a shortage of engineers that are required. They will be picked up by other companies. It's a bad time. As Mick said, you go through a really busy point last year. I work within the energy industry, so we had our rough period last year as well when things went to shit. And there was hundreds of staff, if not thousands of staff, let go in our industry as well, because there was just nothing going. Unfortunately, it's just part of the part of what is happening in the world right now. When businesses need to streamline because, it's not that they're not profitable, it's because it doesn't make much sense when there's not much work on to have as many staff as you do. Like Microsoft in 2021 till 2022 hired 50,000 new staff. So essentially, out of those 50,000, 10,000 are no longer going to be working for them, but there's still 40,000 staff better off than the prior year. So yes, obviously it's horrible for 10,000 people to lose their jobs, but they've still employed 40,000 additional staff in the space of a year. They're going to be taking on 10,000 more within the next year when this acquisition completes. So it's a terrible thing. It is terrible that people lose their jobs. And again, there's going to be more. I can guarantee there's going to be more. There's no doubt certain publishers are going to be probably releasing staff. There's no doubt the likes of Amazon will continue to release staff, Google, Samsung, Apple. Across the board, there's going to be a countless amounts of layoffs in the technology sector, 100%.
More than usual as well, because of the way the world is at the moment.
It'll get better when things start to pick up again. you'll see companies hiring like madmen again, but it doesn't make sense right now. The work's not there, so why continue with it? So it's horrible to say that as ultimately as bosses, you need to make these decisions, these horrible decisions. But yeah, Satya Nadella, of course, came out and said, "Listen, like we'll do our utmost to support our staff, including the ones that kind of will be emailing immediately to let them know, and kind of talking through things with them. And ultimately, they'll probably have options for them as well, or try and find them alternate kind of things to go into, or even maybe reposition them in the business, depending on their skill set. Some of these redundancies as well might not need to be it. Your role might be redundant, but they might be able to retain you in other aspects of the business. So, fingers crossed the layoffs aren't as bad as 10,000. But wouldn't be surprised with an overall headcount of 220,000 staff worldwide for Microsoft. Obviously, you're gonna have to streamline somewhere. 10,000 is still a large chunk of change to pull out as well. So, fingers crossed for all the guys that do get notified that their positions are no longer tenable at the company. But obviously, hopefully you'll be in better position shortly, and you've got a new position elsewhere, and everything picks up again. Never a good situation, but of course that's unfortunately how things are. On to a little bit more speculative news, chaps. When will Sony break their first-party studio silence? Now, we've heard rumours recently that Sony shortly are going to have a third-party showcase or some form of third-party news to start talking about soon. So obviously third-party exclusives or second-party studios that are working with them on exclusive content, etc., which is fine. And I'm looking forward to seeing what it is. But ultimately, me and many others with PlayStations are wanting to see what the future of Sony PlayStation is and what we can expect from their catalogue going forward. Now, we already know that Last of Us Factions is in development. We already know that Spidey and Wolverine's in development. But outside of that, and the VR content, we haven't got a Scooby-Doo. So, chaps, when do you think Sony are going to break their silence and eventually give us the news that we want to hear, which is the Sony State of Play showcase telling us about their upcoming IPs? Jen, what do you think?
Hopefully, it's not too long. I mean, we many times last year jokingly said that we don't think there'll be a PlayStation event last year, and there wasn't. So we were right, even though we were joking. Surely they have something soon, because I'm getting sick of waiting. I've got a PlayStation 5, and I just want to see the future of the games there, just like I want to see the future of the games for my Xbox. I want to know what's coming. I need to see updates on Wolverine and all the other games they're working on. The game that Cory Barlog's team is working on at Santa Monica Studio. I want to see what that is. Apparently, that's not going to be anything to do with God of War. It's a different new IP. So I want to see that. I want to see more of the first-person shooter IPs from them, because their first-person it's been lacking. The first-person games have been lacking quite some. They haven't had a proper first-person game since, I think, Killzone Shadowfall, I think, was the last one. And then after that, they went dormant with the Killzone franchise. Same with the Resistance franchise. The last one we saw there was Resistance 3. I just want to see Sony pull their heads out of their ass and invest in first-person shooters again, rather than relying on third-party first-person shooters like they had been doing with Call of Duty for so long. Now they're shitting their pants a bit because they're worried with Call of Duty being an Xbox IP when the deal eventually goes through. So yeah, that's that's something they need to do. I want to see this factions as well. I need to see something from Uncharted because that's been a while. Whether that's a spin-off, a continuation, or whatnot. It's a tough one with Sony. They've been so quiet now. I can't really remember what they've got in the pipeline apart from Wolverine and Spider-Man.
Absolutely, absolutely. Quick shout out to a couple of people here. So we've got the awesome Games Lord with a €1 super chat. Didn't see anything, of course. It was just his parting gift as he leaves the chat here. So thank you very much, sir, for that. And Jacob Novik with 50 Swedish krona, and he says, I wonder why we haven't got a crossover game like Doom versus Halo or some other crossover. Imagine Chief holding a Doomslayer red sword. Indeed. Or even if you crossed all of them over in some form of weird kind of mashup where you have Doom and Gears and Halo.
Smash Bros.
Like a Smash Bros. Like yeah, I've said this about a kart racer as well before, though. Yeah. Like a Microsoft kart racer. We've got so many characters now in the Microsoft universe that you could create their own kart racer. Likewise, you could with some Smash Bros.
Or a kart racer or a Smash clone. I'd prefer to see something along the lines of a hero shooter where, I don't know, all their IPs worlds collide and you take Marcus Phoenix from Gears, Master Chief from Halo, the Doomslayer, and put them in like an Overwatch sort of style world. Something like that could be cool.
That would work as well. I don't see why you couldn't have that as well.
Yeah, like we got a couple, like if Killer Instinct, they had a couple. So I think they had the Arbiter and they had General Ram. But we didn't get Master Chief, unfortunately. We didn't get Doom, but the Doom guy wasn't part of Xbox at that point. But if there is a Killer Instinct, of course, bring them in.
They have a thing about. I remember somebody questioning them about that, and there was an overwhelming opinion that they shouldn't allow the Master Chief to get blown to pieces. They didn't want to see
bollocks.
Yeah, that was the official unofficial sort of responses, that they didn't feel like seeing the Master Chief getting chainsawed in half.
He's been blown to bits by 343 for 10 years. What does it matter?
I mean, if you play on Legendary Edition, if you play on Legendary, you're going to get blown to bits anyway.
Yeah. Well, that was why they didn't. That's why they never put Chief in anything like that. If it's not a game where you just fall over and die, then they're not interested. So.
But Jacob, I think we all agree though we'd love that to happen, whether it be a kart racer, whether it be a Smash Bros type game, whether it be some kind of shooter version of Smash Bros where you've got all the kind of big shooter characters in there or something along the lines. That would be, of course, it'd be fun. It'd be a fun mashup game to do, and you've got the characters to do it. You just need to get the studio together to find it and to kind of come up with that idea and make it work. No,
Pixelbit says, let's hope they got over that foolishness. Let's hope they did. That was a long time ago though, and things have changed a lot since then. So, I'd say there's more chance now than there was then.
I think a hero shooter could work better. I mean, once this deal goes through, they're going to own Overwatch. So what better than to do an Overwatch style game using all the characters they own?
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. But yes, Jen, to kind of elaborate further on your Sony thing, what would be if you think they're going to do an event soonish, or hope they do an event soonish? When do you think Sony will come out with their first peek of what they're doing? Do you think they're going to leave it as late as middle of the year to start talking about the rest of the year? Ultimately, what they've got so far to advertise is Forspoken, which is of course Square Enix, Final Fantasy, which is Square Enix. You've got Final Fantasy 7, which is Square Enix. You've got then Spidey. So Spidey is the only first party. So when do you think is a realistic time where they should start talking?
Considering it's Sony and we've waited this long, I wouldn't be surprised if a third-party thing is something they put on in March and then they just wait for E3 now. It feels like that's most likely situation. Preferably, I'd want to see something a little bit sooner than later, and I would say March would be a good time to show it. But I feel that Sony are going to take their time and wait for E3.
It's you know what it is. I feel more sorry for actual Sony, like proper Sony fans. Like, we're ultimately Xbox first here and Sony second. We love the Sony IPs, we love the Sony platform, but we've ultimately built our foundations on Xbox. We've got hundreds of people on the friends lists. We've got our back catalogue of games on Xbox from day dot. So ultimately, our foundations are on here, which is why we're kind of essentially always Xbox as a first port of call. But we love what PlayStation do as a secondary. For us, we love the storytelling that Sony provide with their first-party IPs. We love their kind of mainline franchises and things like that, with Uncharted, with your Spider-Man, with God of War. What they create in a storytelling sense is phenomenal. But when you come to, say, the die-hard fans over on Sony side, who have Xbox as a secondary and Sony as a first port of call, they don't have much. Like, they literally have had not much to go at. Like, outside of they've had the awesome release of God of War, which was awesome, but in terms of actual news on what they can expect from their favorite platform going forward, they haven't got a Scooby-Doo what's coming up or what games they can look forward to, and that for me is frustrating. And this is me being a non PlayStation centric channel. And owning a PlayStation, I'm already frustrated because I have absolutely no idea what I can look forward to going forward. I'm like, right, okay, Spidey 2. Right? Okay. and what?
Spidey 2
so
and Factions is really probably all what they're going to have this year, in my personal opinion. But who knows what they could announce when they finally have their major event.
Yeah. Mick, before I get your opinion as well, a quick shout out to Jacob Novovic again with the 50 Swedish krona. He says, probably because Todd Howard wants to have control over his Bethesda IPs. He said them multiple times in interviews. Oh, no doubt. To be fair, and this sounds daft, but outside of the Dragonborn from Skyrim, for instance, like, he hasn't got like a staple main character, because all of his characters for his IPs are ultimately what you create. So they're all different. So there isn't like a poster child, although the Dragonborn essentially as the poster child was ultimately that guy with the massive like the helmet, with the awesome helmet on and things like that. So that looked cool. But they're always the create your own character route. So there isn't really yes, you've got the Pip-Boy. So for instance, if you did a Smash Bros style thing, you could probably throw a Pip-Boy in there. And throw that in as a character. But outside of that, it's not much. Doom Guy, of course, as we've mentioned before, from id Tech. But Doom Guy's been in quite a few things. Obviously, he's been in Fortnite, so I don't think they mind about Doom Guy. So yeah. But thank you again for the super chat. Mick, yourself, what do you think Sony's plans are for this year then? When do you think they're actually going to eventually break the silence that's been like a year long and start talking about what they've got planned?
I think it's probably going to hinge on how well this Xbox event goes. They do like to try and steal the thunder. So I think if this Xbox event, yeah, I think you need to, if you're a Sony fan, you need to hope that this Xbox event is really good and we get some really good news. Because if we do, Sony are going to want to steal some of that limelight back again. And then I think you'll get an announcement for maybe late February, early March state of play. They might not tell you what's in it, but you might get an announcement, say, a few weeks, another show coming. They'll try and pull some of that social media back their way. If it doesn't go well, I think you might be worried that you're going to be waiting till E3 before you hear anything off them.
And that's my worry.
If they don't feel like they need to come out and say, sort of, put something out there to get the limelight back, they won't bother.
And that's
Yeah,
the thing as
Sony's
well. That's the thing for
fast
me.
with
It's
player.
like the beginning of the year, Xbox have got pretty much, and will have, when these games have, as of next week, we know these release dates, and we know these are getting the games. Xbox have essentially got the limelight for the entire first 6-7 months of the year.
Yeah.
Like, you think Forspoken's going to overshadow Redfall or Forza or Starfield?
No.
Absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely
not after that demo, which I still
Have you
haven't
seen
played.
that? Have you seen that it's running like on the PC as well?
Oh, that's bad.
That requires a lot of horsepower to get running at any
Yeah,
performance.
you need
Well,
like a 480.
4080.
Poor optimization for you. It don't even look that graphically demanding.
No, I was looking at getting that game as well. I'd have to say, when I'd seen it, I thought that looks quite good. And when they put out that it was going to be, I don't know whether they'd announced it, but it's certainly on True Achievements. Where the achievement list is on True Achievements for it for the PC, and I thought that's interesting. Might give that a go, just for a laugh. I know I've got a mate who plays PlayStation exclusively, and I know he was when it was announced as what was it his original name before it got the Forspoken name? It was called something else.
It was it was a project something. I forgot what it was called again.
Something or yeah, but when it was announced, he was big for that. He was like, "Oh, that looks amazing! I'm getting that day one." I haven't spoken to him recently about it, but I'm interested to see whether he's still as keen as he was, certainly after that demo. But the PlayStation 5's running it in performance mode at 720p. That's not
bad.
that's not a serious. That's not a number I thought I'd be saying this generation.
Absolutely
gen.
not. That's horrific.
That's ooh. I mean, there is two options there, isn't there? There's 720p or not play it, and I know which one I'd choose because I couldn't be playing it. I couldn't be playing it at 30 frames. I'm done with that.
I'm pretty sure there's a bunch of uproar on this, and I would not be surprised if that gets delayed again.
But it's not even just that. Like, being
I'd go with that.
720p on console in performance mode is horrific as it is. That means it's going to be running at 60 frames at 720p, which means that it'll probably run at 1080p at 30. But then you have to think, even if you wanted to play the best version of that game, you're going to need an NVIDIA GTX 4080 card, which means that you're going to have to be forking out the best part of £1,000 for just the graphics card, as well as then the processor, and having a minimum of 32 gig RAM, minimum, and obviously have a nice fast SSD, and the latest generation of processors, just to run Forspoken at 60 and 4K. Like, even if you wanted it in 1440p, you're going to have at least a 30 series card, minimum.
Yeah.
To get that running at 1440, which means that you probably end up going to, most PC users will be running this as console intends at 720p or less. That's horrific.
It's horrific. Mr. Joanna Dart has just upgraded to a 4090. So you should get 4K 60. You and about 4 other people.
Yeah. you and your master race, your PC master race brethren with your 4090s can play Forspoken. So they're gonna have at least 4 sales. So it's happy days.
Yeah, no, it's like I can't. No.
Yeah.
What's it running on Switch?
I was originally excited for this game when I saw it. And every
Yeah,
time,
I've just muted myself there.
every time they
So
show it off, the more I'm like,
I keep muting myself. I keep muting and unmuting myself at the wrong times. So what I was saying, chat, was I can't believe that game is running at 720 60, and I thought it was just rumor. I thought it was just people taking the piss on Twitter, just saying 720, ha ha ha. But then, of course, Mick saying, no, that's 720, 60 in performance is the actual PlayStation. That is abysmal for this day and age. Like, we were talking about games should be at least 60 in some kind of dynamic 4K. It doesn't need to be a lot, like, actual native 4K. We don't care about that anymore. We've got FSR, we've got all of that stuff in place now, so we don't need to have a native picture anymore these days. We've got the tools available in order to have an upscaled image that's going to be looking close to the actual native image. But 720p in what is essentially the third year of the generation on the next generation hardware, that is horrific.
What I want to know though is has the PlayStation fans moved the goalpost yet?
Yeah,
The
diehards.
No, they just go quiet. Gets ignored.
But well, I mean, that's the thing. Like this is why we don't. This is why we don't shout about, and this is exactly why I don't shout about games before I've played them, and I don't hype games up before I've played them. So I'm not going to get, like, even for God of War, all the way up until its release. The one thing I was saying was, I'm looking forward to it, but it needs to hit, the story needs to hit it on the head. And if the story hits, then I'll start talking about it. But until that point, I'm not going to hype it up. And I've said that about, even including Starfield, all the way through, we've said explicitly, like, we're super hyped for the game because we know what a Bethesda world is. But ultimately, what we need to make sure is that both the story hits and all of the quests and things are all brilliant, and then the performance also matches that. And it isn't this Bethesda thing we used to. Yes, we still want some funny little glitches here and there. But ultimately, what we want is a really well-performed game that is as smooth as possible at launch. So when we see that, and when we've got gameplay, and when we've got proof that the game is running as where it is, then our hype will start to generate. What I never agree with is getting unbelievably hyped and start, like, shouting about a game that you've never played before, calling it, like, X killer, or this is going to wipe the floor with this, or this is going to wipe the floor with that, before the game's ever come out, or you've ever played it. You don't know the specs, you don't know how it runs, you don't know what the gameplay loop's like. Then people played the demo, and then they played the demo, and they're like, this is a bit twitchy, don't know if I'm going to play this. And then they release the specs, and they're like, 720p 60 at performance. Like, what? Sorry? Then you have to start backpedaling.
You imagine if that had been announced on Xbox at 720p?
It would be the end of times. It would be the end of the world. Imagine if Redfall's. Imagine if the Redfall guys came out and said, "Oh, by the way, this game's like in performance mode is 720, 60, and in ultra mode it's at 1200p 30." You'd be like, "Sorry." So,
yeah.
Absolutely
what
no.
Was that? What did you say?
Sorry. No, absolutely not. Thankfully, we're not expecting that. But in the other flip side of the coin here is, I also can understand, because it's Square Enix. Square Enix games notoriously haven't been, and I'm talking about their new IPs and their open world games, have never performed great at launch. They've always been really, on the overheads, have been pretty poor. Even Final Fantasy 15 was like that. The overheads on 15 was terrible. The engine, it is trash. I agree, Pixel. The engine is trash.
What engine is it, by the way?
It's their own proprietary engine.
Is that what Forspoken's running on?
Yeah, I think it's the same one that they used for 15, which is why people didn't like it. And 15 was notoriously difficult to develop on. And this is one of the issues, obviously, people mentioned about the bloody Slipspace engine in Halo. It's a proprietary engine, so, like, there's only a certain amount of people who know how to operate it. And when you bring these people in, you've got to train them up on the new engine, because it's nothing like any other engine. And it's exactly the same with this Square thing. Like, they've got a certain limited staff. It's their own engine. The engine doesn't work well anyway.
Sorry, we're talking about Forspoken or Halo now?
Both. But yeah, for Spoken, and in terms of Square, they've always had development issues. The Luminous engine, that's the one. It's just not. It's not great. This is part of the reason why a lot of these teams are starting to move over to Unreal, because it's a lot easier to manage. You're right, Pixel.
Yeah.
Halo doesn't have performance
doesn't-
issues, but the
no.
engine itself is notoriously difficult to develop on, which is one of the issues with it. And part of the issue with half the delays. And it's just not always beautiful. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agree. Same with Luminous though. Like Luminous, I found as much as 15 looked cool, it had a very blurry image to it. Like the image itself was it felt a little bit washed out. It felt a little bit blurry. When you got close to something, it was hyper detailed in close retrospect. But distance wise, it just lost all of its detail in the distance. All of it. So not a good start if that's the performance things you've got going for it. Not a good start at all.
I've completely lost interest in that game now.
Yeah. Especially now I've seen the
went from
specs that
really
you're.
quiet to after that trailer, the one with the really bad dialogue, not so bothered. And now I'm like, nah, I'm good.
But it's especially now I've seen like even the laptop that I've got, which is powerful enough. It's a 30 series, a 3070. It does its job. It runs most games at pretty decent quality. Like I don't even bother pushing 4K on the laptop. It's no point, because it's a small screen. Even the monitor's a small screen, so I just go to 1080, ultra settings, everything, ray tracing, the lot. Sweet. But if Forspoken's gonna, if it's gonna require me to use pretty much all of my overhead to get a 1080p image at medium settings, at most, and maybe get 45 to 50 frames if I'm lucky. Nah. No.
I predict
Pass.
that game's going to be in the Steam sales very quickly.
There's not many people going to be able
I
to play
think
that
they'll
game at
probably go
any.
into PlayStation Plus.
And then I might
pretty
try
quick.
it then. Yeah, I might try it then, because I'm not worried about wasting the money on it. But until then, I think I'm
Yeah,
done.
I really wouldn't be surprised if that goes into PlayStation Plus Premium pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, unfortunately, you just can't throw all your bags into the Square Enix basket, and that's what they have this year. Outside of Spidey, all of their eggs are in the Square Enix basket, which is an issue because I do not personally foresee Final Fantasy VII Rebirth coming out at the end of the year. I don't see it. Do not see it happening. When they announced last year that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Final Fantasy the third number in the Final Fantasy VII trilogy remake was going to be the year after, I laughed. I thought, don't be stupid. There's absolutely in no universe, in no multiverse, does Square Enix release a Final Fantasy title back to back on top of another mainline Final Fantasy title, which is 16, that's also releasing this year, on time.
Allegedly.
Yeah. Not a chance. 15 took a decade to come out. You know how long it took them to create Final Fantasy VII Part 1? That was ultimately just as long. They originally announced it as a tech showcase for PlayStation 4 or 3?
3, I was going to say. I think it was 3.
I think it was 3 when they announced, look at this, and then they showed off Final Fantasy VII in the new engine for the first time, and we were like, no. They were like, that's just a tech demo, we're not actually redoing it. And we're like, oh, what a waste of time. And then they were eventually...
Pixel says that Sony won't pay to put it in PlayStation Push, but I don't think they'll have to pay. I think Square Enix will want it to go in there just to get more people in, because it's going to have microtransactions, isn't it? Let's face it.
Remember, they've got timed exclusivity on there. So
Yeah,
they'll put it into the premium only.
It won't cost them much.
Yeah,
they'll put it into the premium only. They'll not put it into extra. They'll put it into the premium only section.
Sony will give them an extra 10 quid. Sweeten the pot.
Yeah.
That's not a good start for them. But ultimately, so what we're saying essentially, when we think they're going to break the silence, do we think ultimately we want them to be breaking the silence in say by March. Is that essentially what we're hoping for? But we ultimately think it's probably going to be around E3. Is that what we're thinking?
Probably.
Who knows?
I think they need to speak up. I mean, it's ridiculous that if the rumors, and again these are rumors, but if the rumors are true that they delayed their original showcasing what they're working on because of the takeover business. Originally, I said that was friggin' stupid anyway. Ultimately, it's not going to affect anything. They could look at it and say, "Oh, yeah, look at all these new exclusives you've got." Yeah, but of course they've got exclusives because they're their own titles. Of course, it's their own
I don't think
IPs.
that rumor's true because
Of course, I don't.
No matter what, they'd have to show what they've
Something.
got in the works.
Yeah.
For
the shareholders and
CMA
the
and all that,
consumers.
just to show what they've got in the works,
Yeah. It's for me, I think personally, they need to have announced a showcase no later than March. The year is passing them by. They cannot rely solely on third-party games to keep them afloat this year. And Spidey, as much as it's set for 2023, is not a definitive. It isn't definitively there. Insomniac have come out and said it's releasing this year, but something can always happen.
No concrete release date, so that could slip.
There's no guarantees here. Until we've got a concrete release date from Insomniac, who say, yep, it's definitely, this is the date, this is when it's coming out, then that is coming out. And we've said the same about everything. It's like, even if you have a look at Bethesda were absolutely so certain that Starfield was releasing that they give themselves a release date. At no point in time has Bethesda ever done that without being deadly sure that they were going to release a game on that date. They were that confident. The only reason they didn't was because Microsoft pulled it and told them to delay it. Outside of that, there is, like, the only time you can be certain a game is releasing on the date, even if the release date is there, is about a month before it releases.
And even
then, sometimes it can happen.
Look what happened with Cyberpunk. It was a month out, and then they delayed it a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And that game had gone gold.
Yeah.
So it can happen.
Yeah. Jacob Novik asks, when do we think Machine Games Indiana Jones releases? I think Indiana Jones is late 24, early 25. What do you think, Jen?
I think 26.
Think 26? Mick, if you're still here, what do you think?
25, end of 25, earliest, like sort of early 26 at the latest, I think.
Yeah. Mick,
sorry, repeat the question. Sorry.
When do you think Machine Games' Indiana Jones is going to release?
I don't feel like it's this year. I feel like maybe E3 next year we might get more information. I don't think it's out next year either, though. I think it's probably the year after. I feel like I still feel like it's a way off.
I said late 24, early 25. So I think it's probably a 25 title ultimately.
Yeah.
Depends how they manage it, but I think they've got a lot more games in the works that are far sooner to being released and shown off than Indie. I think Indie's very much an early in development title, which is why we didn't see anything of it. We essentially just saw that little kind of intro thing to say, look, it's been developed, look at this, and teasing kind of Indie's hat and his whip and things like that, which was awesome. Okay, we know it's being developed, but ultimately that was all it was. We don't know anything about the game, what it looks like or anything, so that game is the early stages. It's essentially the same type of trailer we got for Elder Scrolls from Bethesda, which just went, Elder Scrolls 6. Like, we're working on it, but it's way out. way out.
We got to remember that when we get these announcements like this that are just a little splash screen and a little tease, they're not real. I mean, they're nice for us, gets hype up, gets you seeing what's coming. But a lot of the time, it's more to do with that developer, whoever it may be, wants to be able to advertise, we're making this game. Would you like to come and work? Are you a developer? Are you interested in this game? They don't have to hide behind we're making a game. We're making a project. We can't say what it is. and then they've got to invite that person in and interview them without telling them anything that's going on, because they don't want that person to not be the right person and then send them on their way, knowing that they were working on a game that's more information that's got out the door. So a lot of the time, these announcements are put out so that they can say, we are working on this game, and then they don't have to hide behind anything. So the it's not really for our benefit, it's for theirs, so that they can advertise and get more people that are, because it could be a big big decider for
It's
some
usually
devs
for
that,
generating interest as well, to
if
go,
you
oh
find a
look, there's loads
dev,
of interest in this, to their investors.
yeah,
And
if you find a dev that's really talented, and you find another dev who's maybe not quite as talented, but has a massive passion for, say, Elder Scrolls. He's played every Elder Scrolls game. He knows the lore inside out. That's the person you want, because he's invested. You know what I mean? So being able to say, we're making Elder Scrolls, you want that person to be fighting to get to the front of the queue because he's passionate to be there. They're the people you want working for you. The guy that's just like, yeah, I could do the job, but I don't really know anything about the game. It's not it's not what you want, really, when you're in these sort of situations. So these games, these trailers, you got to try and think that these games are probably a good distance out. It's painful to say that, because you and me, Dutch, are looking at that Fable trailer going, just give me Fable, please. You know?
I think from what we've heard
But
so far, anyway, and thankfully, and again, I don't know whether or not 3-Bit's here and listening. Usually, he's kind of in the background or listening whilst he works, which is awesome. But he jumped in last week. I think it was last week or the week before, and he said it's going to be great. The rumors are false. Nothing wrong with it. It's going to great.
Yeah.
It's looking great. You're going to be amazed by it. I trust what he says. He's a really cool guy. He's worked on a lot of different games. Fable happens to be one of them right now. He's worked a lot of Ubisoft titles previously as well. He obviously works in kind of the artistry side of things. So he knows what he's talking about. He knows in terms of what visually it looks like. It's going to be awesome. So that's good to hear. So I've got no qualms about that. To be fair, I haven't got any qualms about Playground. I think ultimately the only thing we've always wondered is how Playground are going to do the people inside of cars, and we're more intrigued to see how they do that. We're more intrigued to see how they take that on. But in terms of their quality, their attention to detail, their visuals, their performances, like how the games run, all the Playground games Forza's have ran beautifully. Across the board, they've been the most. Both Forza Horizon and Forza Motorsport, both of those games are the most optimized games you can possibly play on PC. Like, I've seen some guy with a 4090 or something like that running Forza Horizon 4 in 8K 60 frames on PC with everything on Ultra, completely maxed out 8K 60 on a 4090. And he was like, "Holy shit, this is optimized." You couldn't believe that is an optimized engine whenever you've seen one. So when it comes to the game releasing, I've got no qualms with it being running well, looking beautiful. I think the only thing that every fan's antsy about is how they're going to carry out the combat and the RPG style of Fable and the characters and things like how they're going to do that. But I think they've got enough talent on board now from across the industry in order to pull that off. And Playground are right to push back to Xbox and say, listen, when we're ready to show it, we'll show it. We know you like what you've seen, but we don't think it's ready to show. So when we're ready to show it, we will show it. Ultimately, I think we will see Fable this year. I think we'll probably see more of Fable at E3. I think that's enough time for them to get more of an overhead and more polish and things like that into this slice of gameplay footage that they want to show off, to show us at E3, from when we heard that all of the Xbox execs had actually originally seen it, which was about, by the time E3 comes around, it'll have been about 8 months. That's another 8-month chunk of time since they saw the game to when they would potentially show it off. That's a long time. So I think we'll probably see more of Fable this E3. Potentially look at it scheduled to release next year.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But I think ultimately,
Fingers crossed.
for us, Hellblade will be the one that makes it this year. I think that is the most realistic one of coming out this year is Hellblade. I think that's going to be the fall game.
I think that'll be a November sort of game.
Yeah, that'll be the November game this year. I think personally, I think it's from what the studio have been saying and how they've been kind of going through things. I think they're ultimately in the section of development where they've got everything ready to rock and roll. They've done all the mocap, all the story elements. They've done all of the work with scanning in all the materials and creating all the textures and the 3D audio and stuff. I think right now it's putting everything together, finishing it all up. I think that's going to be at the end of this year, ultimately. It's going to be an awesome time. It's going to be awesome. But Sony need to pull their finger out because I want to see what they're creating. I want to see the next Uncharted or whatever it is that they're doing. I want to see whatever Guerrilla Games are working. Not Guerrilla. The devs from Days Gone. What are they called again? Sony Bend. I want to see what Sony Bend are doing. I want to see what Corey's working on in his secondary project, which has nothing to do with God of War. I want to see what all those teams are carrying out at the moment. I know Corey has said he doesn't want to show anything until it's ready. I know Neil Druckmann has said he doesn't want to show his stuff off too early anymore. So outside of factions, I don't think we'll see his. It's a toughie. Who do we see? Do we see the guys from Returnal coming out with something new?
Project. I'm most interested in Corey Barlog's project.
Oh, most definitely. I think we're getting to the last topic of this evening, actually. Before we start wrapping up, and that is, of course, the news today, which was quite a just a little brief flash on the screens, essentially. But Lucid Games partnering with Sea of Thieves to work on the world of Sea of Thieves. Mick, I'm going to come to you first on this one because it's an interesting out of the blue scenario here. We haven't really seen publicly the Rare team or the guys from Sea of Thieves ever mention working with third-party studios or other independent studios like that of their size.
We have once. It was the guys that did the arena.
Oh, okay.
So that section of the game, the arena, was actually built by a different team.
Right.
It wasn't Rare that made it. It was another team. So now we've got the PvP mode in Sea of Thieves. I can't see it being another PvP mode or another arena or anything like that. So I know you mentioned something when we were in our chat before about Tall Tales. I can't see Mike and the team.
I don't think that's a thing that they'll be exploring. What could be the case, because of course we know Sea of Thieves, as huge as it is anyway, it's got many millions of players that play it all of the time. There's two scenarios in my head. They're bringing on, instead of mass hiring loads of people to create the next big expansion, like your Disney expansion that we got with that huge kind of section. Instead of mass hiring loads of people in order to ramp up development for an expansion, you partner with a team to assist with the development of that next expansion. That being, that team gives you quite a number of heads to assist with that. Or alternatively, and another good point that was in the chat, you have moved a lot of the team that are working currently on Sea of Thieves over to the development of Everwild to assist with the development of Everwild, and brung in Lucid in order to support the ongoing development of Sea of Thieves as a games as a service game. those seem like
That's what I
the
think
likely
it is.
scenarios. Mick, what are you thinking on that?
I'm not convinced. We've had a couple of delays to the different seasons. I think notably, I think it was season 6 got delayed. Well, 7 got delayed, and we had to live with season 6 about a month or so more, maybe 6 weeks extra on top of what we normally have to before the next season starts. And it feels like I could see them bringing more people in to keep the content flowing, but I'm not convinced they'd be willing to let anyone move over to start doing something else when they seem to be just about at the moment. I think there's been a little bit of a delay, maybe a week or two, possibly on the last season. This one recently, or the season before, sorry, but this one's been all right. But it just feels like they wouldn't want to take people away. I think they'd quite happily take more people on to keep the flow going and making sure content keeps coming on time. But I don't know. I can't see them letting anyone go. Not anybody important, anyway. To move over to maybe the Everwild team.
Oh yeah, I don't see some like important people. I think it's just a lot of the kind of
I don't think it's
stuff that they don't require now. Like
Yeah.
for instance, like artists. Well, not even artists. I just mean like more like people that might do some of the kind of the graphical things, the backhouse things that you don't need, like artistry and kind of creating different scenarios and things like that. But you've got the vast majority of your assets now, so all you need to do really is just okay. Well, we need people to create kind of worlds or new islands or new sections, or as you've seen with certain outposts, they're now continuing to grow step by step, and that's awesome. But you probably don't need as many heads doing that these days. You just need probably a little group of teams that just need to get there, put their heads together, and think, right, okay, what cool things can we add to this? Kind of flesh it out that way. But you probably don't need as many people in those teams now as you once did, where they can probably say, okay, we're gonna get even say how many staff have they got now? 200 ish, maybe more at Ray.
I think it's around the sort of 350 mark.
You're right. Okay, so if you're saying about that 300 odd mark, I don't think Lucid Games are big. I think they're maybe 50 at most. I don't think they're that big. I don't even think 50 is probably their head count, to be honest. So even if you say you take out 50 of your staff from Sea of Thieves and move them over to Everwild, okay, you guys have done really well with the combat and sort of the combat mechanics in Sea of Thieves, or the traversal, or the storytelling, or creating some of these things, but don't need yous right now because, of course, we've got the platforming down all right, we've got the gun mechanics down right with X, Y, and Z. We kind of need your expertise going into the world of Fable and creating characters and things here. These guys, we've got all the characters and things set in stone here. We've got our lore that's built in here. What we really need is just people that can maintain the story, create new stories and things like that. Do you think that's probably what could be happening? Because it's not a big team that's coming in. It's a pretty small team.
Maybe. It's difficult to say. It makes me wonder why, if they were going to bring somebody in, why not just put, even if it's, like, say, maximum of 50 people, and they're going to be putting them in, why not just take them and just stick them on the Everwild team? Why bring them into Sea of Thieves and disrupt the flow of people that know what they're doing? Why not just take those 50 new people and just go, Everwild teams over there, go and assist them? It seems odd that they're coming in to help Sea of Thieves, to move Sea of Thieves people over. Seems a bit of a weird thing to do to me, but we don't know. We'll see. I think it's a good thing. I'm not against it. More the merrier. But it just seems a bit of an odd thing to be doing.
What do you ultimately want to
that
see on it? What do you want to see come out the back of it? What would you hope for?
I I'm still a little bit confused about the whole thing. It would be nice to get a sort of side stuff, I could say like a spin-off, something spin-off, Sea of Thieves related. If you think back to when we had Fable, I'm not saying I want a card game, but when we had Fable, we had like a pub games, like a spin-off game that was a Fable pub games. There was also Fable Heroes, which was a little side-scrolling beat 'em up style co-op game with like 4 or 5 players, whatever it was. Those sorts of things. I could see, they've got a pedigree of building these sort of smaller indie games. I could see them making a smaller spin-off Fable, Sea of Thieves game, maybe. I'm not sure whether that's a good thing. you know, certainly they're known for making Destruction All Stars. We all know how well that went. So, but with the proper, I mean, this would probably work both ways. Rare have got such a great team, and Lucid Games. I always said Lucid Sound then. Lucid Games, obviously, are a small team that make these indie games. With the proper help, they could be shown how to improve. So,
And I
it
think as
might
well
not be
with
like
Destruction All Stars, it wasn't that like it performed well, it looked good, it just wasn't. It just didn't take off, which was unfortunate for them. But it wasn't anything technically that was wrong with it. There's nothing anything visually that was wrong with it. It just didn't perform.
yeah.
It was unfortunate. So they're very capable developers. Unfortunately, it just wasn't the best. Wasn't the best thing. I think for me though, and I've said this for a while, I would love to see. And this is what I hope for from this. I would love to see, with the increased help on development that they've brung in, this being the case for them to push forward with another big like a DLC expansion, like a Pirate's Life type of thing, like working towards a big separate story mode that you can cooperatively do with 4 people, like they did in Pirate's Life, where it was completely separate from everything else, and it was this nice adventure with some whimsical story.
Mostly.
Yeah,
Mostly completely separate.
yeah. But with this whimsical storytelling, like that's the kind of thing I love, and like every now and again, I'd love to jump back into to Pirate's Life and just experience that again, because it was the storytelling was cool, and the way they did it was cool, and the nice little set pieces that they had. That's what I'd like to see more of in the Sea of Thieves universe. Like what little like stories you can replay from time to time that are like that aren't your standard doing your forts or doing your PvE or doing your tall tales, which are all cool in itself in this ever evolving story, but also have these cool stories you can just return to from time to time, like your Pirate's Life, that are these separate entities within the world that you can just go and replay. I'd love something big like that to come into it, and I hope this is what this is. Personally, maybe they don't shift over any staff. Maybe they continue with the 350 that are there, bring on these additional guys from there, and say, listen, we're really ramping up for this big expansion we've got planned. Maybe it could be, Monkey Island big expansion with this huge new awesome story separate. You just never know. It's the dream. You just never know.
I can say on that part that there's definitely something along those lines.
Yes, I know.
Eventually.
Yes.
Don't think it's soon though.
But that's the type of stuff I'd love.
Just a quick one there. Reborn said, wasn't the Johnny Depp DLC in Sea of Thieves more story focused single player? It wasn't single player. It was still like Sea of Thieves in a crew, so up to 4 people. And it was a sort of focused story, but there were elements and parts of it that were in the open world with other players. And at the time, when everyone was doing it, it's fine now because nobody's doing it anymore. Everyone's done it, apart from the occasional person that comes into the game now. But at the time, certainly the second mission was in the real world, in the game. So if you were doing the story and your ship was parked at a certain point, everyone knew what you were doing and they'd come and screw with you. So it wasn't. It was story focused, but not single player. Definitely not.
Yeah, and it was absolutely awesome, and I still recommend anybody who hasn't already played that little expansion that came into it, go and play it, because it was a great story. And right now, it's the best it'll be. There was a few issues because it was instances. So you had a crew of 4, but unintentionally, a crew, you might join someone else's instant when you're doing it. And it wasn't even intentional, it was just accidental. It would drop you into their instant. And they would be halfway through doing a puzzle, and you'd join when the puzzle was halfway through, and then it would kind of interrupt the flow of things, and doors would shut, and you couldn't open them again, and you'd lose a box, and you couldn't get the box back. You're like, oh, Jesus Christ. So it didn't really help. But because there's less people playing it now, because it's not as packed as it was then, you get through that much smoother now. You're going to be far less issues. But it's absolutely worth playing. Absolutely. It's so well done. And I'd still like to see an expansion on what they could do with the Pirates of the Caribbean expansions, or work with Disney to do that. Makes sense.
It left on a cliffhanger almost. You know, it was a definite. I think the actual line from Jack was that, you know, he'd be back at the end. So, you know,
you never know.
It's Disney, innit? You've got to. Disney were very happy with it, apparently. So usually when Disney are happy with things,
absolutely,
that usually means it's coming back. So
yeah.
whether you like it or not, you know, Disney like their money. Let's face it.
I think it was so faithfully done, though. It was so faithfully done across the board. All the characters were faithfully done. It felt like a pirate game and a pirate adventure, and that was key to what it was meant to be. And I think one thing, and again, you mentioned they love the money and they were very happy with it. And you could see that because they were advertising it outside of Disney World. They had it on the banners outside of Disney World. Play Sea of Thieves: A Pirate's Life today with Jack Sparrow and Johnny Depp and things plastered all over it. So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think there's no doubt. They love, like you say, they love money, but they also seen how popular that was. It was phenomenal. And if you had like what Sea of Thieves have now with a player base of over 20 million players, it's a substantial amount of people that see that there. And again, with it being in Gamepass and part of Xbox and part of Sea of Thieves, and people can just pick it up as part of a subscription at essentially next to nothing, and they can play the game. And even if you go out and pick up the game now, the expansion is entirely free, and the game itself will be about £10 or something. You can probably find it for, or less, on the shelf if you want to get it physically. It's super cheap, and it's an absolute no-brainer for them. All the DLC for the game's free. You don't need expansions. It doesn't have expansion passes or anything like that. Whatever they bring out is free.
I could see that Disney would actually make a scene the way that they got Jerry Bruckheimer to make Pirates of the Caribbean. I could see them saying, let's make a film of this and do it the same way they did Pirates of the Caribbean, in the same style and the same thing, and then they can bring in some of those characters from, because it is actually lore and part of the same world now. They could bring in Jack, or they could bring in just cameos from, you know, Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann into some films and make a whole new franchise out of it, made by Disney in collaboration.
I was going to say, it could even be an animated film.
That's if Jerry Bruckheimer answers his emails, because apparently he doesn't.
Yeah. It took him a long time to get the nod from Jerry Bruckheimer for that.
I asked Mike Chapman at Sea of Thieves Fest about why we never got a Jack the monkey, and it was because by the time they'd finished doing everything else and they'd come around to making any of the extra props and stuff that they made, and the outfits and all the rest of it that goes in the store, they asked whether they could put Jack the monkey in there. And then from Disney, they got the okay, but apparently it needs Jerry Bruckheimer's approval because it's his design. And they said you can ask him, but if you want to release it on time, you might as well just make your own, because by the time he answers his emails, it'll be too late. So that's why we never got a Jack, the undead monkey pet in Sea of Thieves, is because apparently Jerry Bruckheimer never answers his emails.
I think
So,
in the background, what I probably would have done from a development point is create 2 versions. Have your regular monkey, have the
yeah,
the Bruckheimer version, and then
yeah.
even if it's afterwards, and he goes
Just swap it.
yes and
Yeah.
add.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
But yeah, awesome stuff, and I'm looking forward to it. Jen, I want to get your ideas because you're more new to the Sea of Thieves universe, thanks to obviously Sea of Tuesdays, which we've dragged you in on, and of course I think you're enjoying the game these days now. But what would you love to see this particular edition going
How long
towards?
has Sea of Thieves been out for?
Released
That's a good
in
one.
2018, 2019, 2018.
Then I think it's more safe to say that it's some of the rare staff moving on to the next project. It's been a while since I've been working on Sea of Thieves, of course. They're still going to have their main people that are working on the content for the game because this live service game ain't going nowhere. Sea of Thieves is only getting more popular. And I think that's probably why they're bringing this other team in to assist with where Sea of Thieves goes next. So yeah, I think this is more some of the staff that are not needed so much on Sea of Thieves nowadays are now going to move over to Everwild or possibly a completely different project for all we know. They could be getting off the ground. So yeah, that's sort of where I'm at thinking.
What would you hope it
I
would
would
be?
say
What would you hope it would be, ideally?
Well, I hope it's them moving on to Everwild because that game seems like it's never going to come out at this point. But I mean, who knows? It could be that Banjo-Kazooie game that people keep asking for.
no. It definitely won't be a Banjo game. It definitely won't be any of their old IPs.
Could be something completely different. Who knows?
Yeah.
They like to try new things over at Rare. So
It wouldn't have
I don't know
surprised
what
me
I
if
would
they. It wouldn't have surprised me if they'd said we're working with Lucid Games, and we are going to make an announcement soon, and then left it at that, and then came out and said Lucid Games had come out and said we're making a Conker game, or we're making a Banjo game, or we're making a and they were making that game. I could see that, but because they said they're working with Sea of Thieves, it sort of throws a spanner in that.
Yeah. Mostly, I think it's them moving on to some of the stuff that are not needed moving on to Everwild, but it could be them also starting to get the ground off of another project that they might be working on, whatever that could be. I don't know.
Well,
Maybe.
what Sea of Thieves project would you want it to be if it was essentially them just increasing headcount to ramp up production again?
Purple Skelly
I've-
DLC.
Yeah, it just wants the entire world to be purple.
I'll be all for that. Just make
Just
everything purple. Just make it all purple. No, in reality, I've not got a connection to Monkey Island like you and Mick have, so I'd say something Peter Pan wise. Go with that.
That's a good show.
That'll be for me.
I can see
Captain
there's
Hook
another Disney
and
IP that I
flying
think
ship.
could fit in very well. Imagine if you had Captain Hook just popping out of nowhere with a giant alligator.
Well,
With
if
the flying
like
ship.
we've seen in the Pirate's Life thing, there was a space in that chair, and the other person, the captain, was missing, as he's referred to as the captain. And there are some very suspiciously double cigarette marks on the table, which Captain Hook did smoke a cigar thing with two cigar things on the end of a stick. And there's claw marks on one side where he would sit, rather than a hook mark on the seat. And if you go back and you watch Peter Pan, the crew are throwing knives at a board with a little stick character with the captain written on the wall as they're throwing knives at it as his own crew because they don't like him. So there's a lot of clues there to say that Peter Pan and Hook possibly going to be in the game.
That would be awesome. That'd be
Maybe
awesome.
Ubisoft will partner with them for some Skull and Bones content.
Take your Ubisoft and ram it. Keep it away from my Sea of Thieves. I don't want to see anything Ubisoft involved in Rare. Keep it. You need a very long barge pole to keep them away.
I think one of the good things about Sea of Thieves now is I think they've got into a position now where they have the footing, they've got the player base, they've got the popularity to go to the likes of Disney and say, listen, what content can we make? And I think Disney at this point as well, as you mentioned, was super happy with the reception of Pirates Life, where they'll probably say, listen, well, let's sit down, let's have these conversations. And we're seeing, I think, the great thing about it as well was when they did the interview with the Disney staff and the head of Disney and things like that, and they were talking about working on the Sea of Thieves Pirates Life, and they were just like we've got all the staff here. They've been around the Sea of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. We've talked about it. We're super happy. We're working on it and things like that. And that was great to see. And I think they ultimately, like you mentioned, super happy with how they've worked with Ray on this content, how authentic it's been, not just how popular it was as well. I think the world's their oyster now. I think they're at a position now where they can kind of pick and choose as to what they want to work on, and I think Disney wouldn't say no. I think at this stage, I think Disney would say absolutely, yeah, let's get working on this stuff. Depends on how the team, what the team's plans are, really, ultimately, what they want to work on or what we want to see. I think all we can do is kind of have quiet words with them at Sea of Thieves Fest and go, listen, guys, we want another Pirates of the Caribbean crossover and Monkey Island and Peter Pan and
We can vouch for all of those questions have definitely been asked, mostly by me.
Yeah,
but certainly by lots of other people that were there as well. Trust me.
And shout out to Dave Ramos as well for the $2 super chat. Thank you, Dave. He says the humor of Sea of Thieves would translate well into a movie. Absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. Especially characters like Flameheart and things like that as well. Most definitely would be awesome characters to see kind of brought to life.
Pirate movie with the giant monsters that made me think
that was awesome.
Movie would be perfect.
That was awesome. I
the
forgot
Sea Beast.
Yes.
That's the one.
Brilliant.
Yeah,
Brilliant film.
Yeah.
And Fanto Sir says, never going to Sea of Thieves, maybe one day. You jump into a Sea of Tuesdays one time.
Yeah, he's welcome. Yeah, we should do a community week one week and see if we can get a few people who haven't played it to come and join us. One week when we're quiet and we've got nothing planned.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely much more fun with friends than it is solo. Even Jen will attest to that, and Stu as well, who's played with us, is exactly the same. Both of them played it solo, dropped it, never played it again, and then as soon as they started playing in as a two, or even 2 galleons or 1 galleon and played with friends, it's an entirely different game. It's so much more fun.
It's definitely better with friends, but I don't think I could play it more than once a week.
Yeah, he's not a mix level. Mix I am a pirate. How dare he? He just wants a sponsorship from Kraken now, and then he'd be golden.
That'd be dangerous.
We'll get them to sponsor Sea of Tuesdays. Kraken
would be good. Yeah, that would be good.
With a drinking game as well, where every time I talk about the water,
be legless by the end of it.
Dangerous
I was going to
game.
say be legless by the end of it. It'd just be the stream and we'd all just be asleep, glassing around, just we're all knackered.
Yeah, I would have just drove it into a rock formation in the middle of the...
Yeah, smashed it out.
Any holes, lads? What? Oh, dear me.
Why is rum gone?
Yeah.
Why is the rum?
Why is the rum always gone? Mix hasn't got a problem with that. He keeps getting bought special edition bottles.
I know, yeah.
The rum's never gone here.
It does run out eventually. I've done well this Christmas. It might last me quite a while though this time. I'm still looking at that bottle of that cherry cola stuff though. It keeps coming up in my feed.
Is that the skull one? Yeah.
Yeah. See your booze days, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one that.
See your booze days.
Dear me. But that awesomely wraps up this evening's episode. Actually, it went much longer than I thought we'd be able to carry it, and we've ended up having awesome conversations along the way.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you for everybody who tuned into chat. We still had an awesome amount of people here. Brand new channel member, of course, in Jacob Novik. So thank you, Jacob. Of course, Dave Ramos and Jacob and who else as well was it? Games Lord as well for the super chat. Thank you very much for that. Welcome new channel members and returning channel members. And everybody else who supported us. And if you did enjoy the show and, of course, enjoy all of our podcasts, please make sure to like, share, and subscribe if you don't already. And, of course, make sure you hit the like button on the way out as well if you haven't already done that. Of course, we've got a big show next week. Xbox have already kindly taken notice of when our podcast is. And they've graciously put the Xbox showcase during our podcast, so as not to require a secondary show to cover it. So thanks Xbox for obviously thinking of us in these cases and and airing your showcase in podcast time. Much appreciated for that. So next week's going to be absolutely awesome. Of course, we're going to have probably about 45 minutes or less of us kind of talking about our final hopes of what we're going to see in the gameplay for all of those 4 awesome titles shown next week on the Developer Direct. And then we'll be covering it live with an awesome panel. Of course, we'll have a full house covering the showcase live next week. Of course, this week we do not have a weekend edition. We've had double back-to-back. Of course, this last weekend we had the awesome Dave Ramos joining us to talk all things indie. For this year, which was an awesome show, and of course got his thoughts on Developer Direct as well. And of course, in the upcoming weeks, we'll have more of the community joining in on our weekend editions as well. Would love to have more of kind of new faces and things on the weekend edition joining us to kind of guest and make their debuts. It's always great. But let's get our outros done as well, chaps, and we'll get you guys away. Mick, let people know, brother, where you can be found and what you've got coming up.
Yeah, so I am Xbox Mick29 on Twitter and most places, and just Mick29 on the Xbox. Yeah, and I will be on See Tuesdays, obviously, every Tuesday with yourself and usually Jen and Chris. Quick mention to Chris. I know we said that last night on the See Tuesdays, but Chris wasn't there for us, with us last night because him and his wife have just had a little baby girl. So shout out to Chris. Congratulations. Yeah.
Congratulations, Chris. And
it's Charlotte, his wife. Yeah, they had the little baby girl. So baby's all fine. So it's all well, and they're back home now. So good stuff. So yeah, and then obviously here with you on this marvelous show, and that's about it at the moment. Really, I'm not really doing anything else. Not really playing much apart from Sea of Thieves and a bit of Skyrim still. But that's about it. So yeah,
You're just waiting for that Starfield release. You're just waiting for that Starfield release. That's why you're on Skyrim still.
Yeah, it's killing me now. I'm ready. My body is ready for some Skyrim, for some Skyrim in space, I should say. So yeah, I can't wait. I really can't wait.
Not long to go. Not long. A few months to go.
Yeah. Still holding out for an April release. I've still got a theory that there's not much releasing in April. And I'm just thinking, do they know that there's something big coming that nobody wants to compete with? I know that Starfield fits that bill. So
we'll see.
Got my fingers crossed.
April's going to be a good month to clear some of that backlog.
There is, I think, Dead Island, but then Dead Island's got a habit of just releasing whenever it feels like, anyway.
If it don't get
So-
delayed again.
Nah, I don't think they can delay again. I don't think.
I wouldn't be surprised.
You said that about
That
Skull
game's
and
been
Bones.
delayed so long.
It's true. Oh, I will say I've got Hogwarts pre-ordered, so
You
looking
just
forward
pissed
to
off
that.
an entire community.
Don't care.
Yep.
Don't
No fucks given.
Don't give a
as they
shit.
say.
Play what I want.
Yeah, exactly. But next up, General C. Let people know what you've got coming up, brother, and where they can find you, and of course your alternate channel on Twitch.
Yep. I am back streaming Friday. I'll be continuing my struggle with Demon Souls because that game is finally starting to kick my ass. But yeah, I'm going to be leveling up and hopefully taking on another boss by the end of that stream. But yeah, I got some things in the works. Working on a video that won't come out till hopefully the end of the month, beginning of next month. And you can catch me on my Twitch channel, which is _General_C, and that is my name on Twitter as well.
Awesome stuff. And again, chaps.
What you do?
Yep, you can find me absolutely everywhere at WandrinDutch. You can find me right here every Tuesdays for See Tuesdays podcast, for Playcast with Mick and the crew. Of course, we usually have some awesome guests on, whether it be from the community or whether it be from Sea of Thieves community specifically, which is always awesome to see. And of course, we had 2 awesome guests on this week with Music Me and Lizaroo. So it was great to have both of those on. Really insightful again. So if you missed out on watching that show, please go back and watch it. And any perspective, both either mine or on Mick's channel, dual perspectives there, which is awesome to see. And I will get the dual perspectives back up and running again on my channel to get Mick's on as well soon. I keep leaving it too late at the minute to kind of jump on and get the streams and things set up, but it will happen. It'll get back up and running. When everybody's back streaming it, then I'll get the 4-person perspective, which has been sitting there languishing in the background for a while. I had it all set up and then nobody streamed it again. I was like, God damn it. It's just me and Mick. But yes, other than that, you can find me here on the Midweek Mix-Up podcast, of course, every Wednesday, every second Sunday for the weekend edition, every Thursday for World of Gaming with Boxy, and of course on Wednesday evenings for Primetime Gaming with Boom and Friends. But until next week, guys, hope you have an awesome evening and enjoy our brand new outro video, which will be going forward, our regular outro. So enjoy it, have an awesome evening, and we will see you all next week for the Xbox Developer Showcase live coverage. Good night.
Take care.
Ice and flames call my name. I freeze, I burn, I blame. I love, I hate the same. It's on my face, I cannot hide from the mystery. balance of my power. History in halves, one brain. I will break the chain. Oh no, tokori wa yobu. Moeru rame koru to popu no ai to kirai ni iru. Oh no, tokori wa yobu. Moeru rame koru to popu no ai to kirai ni iru. I love